ethnic friends are just better.
What?
Ethnic friends are just better. We've talked about this.
Yeah, we have.
We've talked about this and like we just I don't know. Like Lisa's like, babe, you don't have that many close white friends, and I was like, hell, that's actually really true. And then me and my brother were talking about this yesterday, and then we figured out like ethnic people, they're just more interesting. They're just so much more interesting. Like Greeks, and that's why I asked you if you wanted to have this on. Like,
no. Yes, have it. Have it on.
Good.
Have it on. Because
yeah,
I have to disagree with you.
Okay, interesting.
Now, I do have more ethnic friends than white friends.
Yeah, that's right.
I do have more ethnic friends than white friends.
Yeah.
But some of my greatest friends, white folks.
No, but by the way, when we're talking white folks, we're talking not like British or Greek or stuff. We're talking about Aussie, like Aussie.
I had one of my best friends was a Queenslander.
Yeah.
A girl up from Queensland. Most energy, like such a character.
Really?
I was always cracking up around it. It was crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though look, I think culture matters. Like you will kind of get along better with people from your culture. Maybe
I just find that they're more interesting. There's more spice. There's more energy. There's more intensity. There's more passion. And
more passion.
No, but honestly, when you think about it, I was thinking about this, and they're all in a way they've all been parentally abused, right? they're all to a certain degree strict.
We all
parents,
got smacked.
All got smacked. Strict parents, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. So in ways that we kind of act out in our own little trauma ways, right? We all got to kind of chip on our shoulder, a lot of ethnics. I'm generalizing here, of course. But I just find that it just ends up more spicy. They're just more interesting. They're just more fun.
And did, can we say your wife's name on the pod? Or do you want to
Yeah.
Did Lisa agree with you? Or was she like...
Yeah,
no?
Well, Lisa's like, yeah, it's kind of true what you say. It's kind of true, but yeah. I was like, I thought about it. I was like, that's actually really true. Like all the friends I read, and I don't discriminate. I have all different types of friends in all different types of circles, but my closest friends always seem to be ethnics. And I'm not talking about. I'm not even talking about British. British, they are very interesting people too. I'm talking about just plain Jane, maybe American or Aussie people.
How many Americans do you know though?
No, now in regards to how I talk to. Like, not that many, but in regards to my life and my work and stuff, a fair few.
I'm starting, like, a white Australian, I think is very different from a white American, and I think it's very different from, like, a white European. And obviously that's also very different because of many different European countries. Like, I don't know that many white Americans, but even them, I feel like, is a whole different breed versus white Australians.
What makes you say that?
Okay, look, at the place I work now, I never really had a good glimpse into like eastern suburbs culture.
Right.
Northern beaches, eastern suburbs.
I know where this is going.
Most of my colleagues were from those areas. There's a few from like Northwest.
Yeah.
But like most of them were from out east.
I think I know where you're laughing. Pretty much the West are just more interesting people than the East. Is that right? I think so.
I'll let Josh explain his perspective before I offer mine. You know?
It's just different, but I think
it's just better.
I had a train of thought. I kind of forgot it now, to be honest. Yeah. But sometimes you'll find people who are super cool no matter what. But I do get what you're saying. I feel like most of the time you'll get along well with people from your culture that you're used to, you're familiar with, you understand the lingo, you understand like the colloquial.
But that's not always. For me, that's not always Indian though. So, like, even with all the similarities, it's just...
Do you guys reckon that white people ever got a podcast are like, man, hanging out with whites is just the best. It's just more interesting. Everything's just kind of boring and dry.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that it's just...
I didn't say that they're boring and dry. He said that
I didn't say that. I just want to be clear. I love white people.
I said one of my best friends...
To all our white listeners, we hear you and we see you.
I said one of my past best friends was a white
By the way,
Queenslander.
I want to clarify as well. I have a lot of white friends. It's just in my close
too late,
circle.
Hey.
In my close circle.
That's what every racist says. Oh, I'm about to say something racist. I have a lot of white friends. Do
you know what's so funny? I've been listening to the podcast, just play back of the podcast so much over this week. And all it is Kevin like treading the line of getting cancelled in the future. And Poya saying, bro, you can't be saying that. And now it's like, and as I was listening, I had to make a decision. I was like, okay, who do I
could
want to?
see within 5 seconds, as soon as I opened my mouth and said what you guys start looking at each other weirdly. And
No. Here's
I
the
was
thing.
like to the seats.
What's that?
Even on the way here, I had to make a decision. I was like, who do you want to be on this podcast, Josh? Do you want to be the dude who's like, no, we can't say that, no? Or do I want to be the one who like says, Kevin, let's run with it?
Okay, you know what? This is a topic we could talk about. The idea of getting cancelled and how far should you go.
I feel
I
like
think we need to talk about this because we always talk about this camera.
I feel like this is a deeper issue within our friendship. But before we jump into that, Josh, I feel like we need to say hi to the audience. Would you like to do the honors?
You're all right. Welcome to the BOB podcast. You're here with Kevin Paulraj, Joshua Badu, and
Poya, Heidari, Shahi.
And the only reason I didn't say Poya's name because I'm afraid I'm going to butcher it. How do I pronounce your surname so I can just know it?
Yeah, Heidari, Shahi.
It's not Hey Daddy.
Whoa.
Don't front.
Bro, you've never said it like
Heidari,
that to me.
Shahi. Puyo Heidari, Shahi. That
Is it actually
my name.
Hey Daddy?
Not Heidari, Heidari. It sounds like Hey
Okay,
Daddy. You
that's
could
close
say-
to like call me Daddy.
Because of the intimacy of our friendship, I'm okay with you saying Hey Daddy, but that's not an invitation for others to do that. You and Kevin have a pass, but to some of our listeners who you may see me on the street, I would not feel comfortable if you were to refer to me as Hey Daddy.
Why did you say it like, bro? If you said that before, I would have pounced on you, bro. Hey, say it again, please.
Say it while
The
I
full-
read
the
it.
full name
Yeah,
or the
yeah,
surname?
yeah.
Puyo Heidari,
Oh,
Shahi.
oh!
What do you mean pounce? Did you mean that in like a positive
Pounce.
way or like you're about to roast him?
I love it. It's so hot.
I see where he's coming
Alright,
from.
so I guess we know how Kevin's marriage is going. So
At least it's in Bali, bro.
that doesn't give you confidence. I'm kidding. I love you, Lisa. Love you. Love you.
But we do appreciate our listeners and those tuning in and how long we can be on air for before,
We lose our
eventually-
jobs.
Yeah, before we lose our job. I'm not losing my job. I love white people, okay?
I love
said it
white
here
people
first.
too. I'll probably marry a white person, to be honest. Just because most of the
What
Christians I
happened
know are white.
to
I'm just saying,
what happened to our
statistically.
twins?
Bro, it's going to be hard, man. Like, you've seen the church I go. You came to my church last night.
If we went out to Bondi, I think we could get it done.
We could.
Apparently that's where they're at.
Yeah,
Wait,
there's
can
a
we-
few.
Can we
There's a
turn
few.
that off?
Turn what off? Oh, whoa. What happened there, mate? What happened there?
I
We
think
had
you just
to-
gave me a quick signal.
Uh,
Oh, it's working, but
It's working. Speaking of what we were talking about, like cancellation, but I feel like there's a deeper issue happening here, guys.
hey, you said there's a deep issue with our friendship? Like,
yeah,
keep
I feel
going to
like
that.
there's a bit of tension I've noticed between you and Kevin.
Ooh.
Bit of tension, bit of triggering,
no.
triggeration happening.
Kevin is
Trigonometry,
triggering
if you
me.
will. Let's get mathematical with it.
Kevin has triggered me, but look, I'm happy to go down the trigger road. But it sounded
Let's
like
do
Kevin
it.
wanted to call an audible about cancellation. Which, if you want to call an audible,
What's an
like,
audible?
Oh, that's like NFL terms, like just changing the play.
Okay.
If you're trying to change the play, I'm open to you changing the play. But if you want to go down the trigger route, I'll go down that route as well. It's your playground.
I feel like the cancellation thing has been done, but I don't think the trigger has been done.
Okay.
I feel like
It's not
cancellation.
about not being done or not. It's
Like,
just it's a hot topic between us.
It's
So it's
between
like-
us, but with the world though.
Who cares,
All right, we
bro?
can talk about it. We
It's
can
not
talk about
them, this is
cancellation.
about us and them.
Good Pink
enjoying
Floyd
the
song.
We will get to the trigger part. That will
That will tie
there.
in, of course.
But
Let's talk about
I do think
cancellation.
this is an important conversation for our not our brand. That's the wrong word. Not our brand, but like the spirit of the podcast. Who do we want to be? Are we willing to tackle hot topic, controversial issues, discussions, or do we want to, play it safe, not ruffle any feathers?
Absolutely not.
But here's the thing: when I was listening to the podcast, Poya was making great points. I don't want to shoot down anything I've heard Poya say over like the last however many podcasts. When it comes to don't just say things willy nilly, like trying to have your opinion be out there for the sake of it being out there, and you're like just pissing people off, and they're not even hearing your message.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
I agree. But then I'm also with Kevin when you're like, you always say that you feel like whenever you say something, you believe that your heart's in the right place, so you don't really fear the repercussions.
Not every single time, but usually if there's certain things where most of the times I've said it, so you guys were like, "Oh, I don't know if you should do that." And usually, if I say it on the podcast, my heart's in the right place. My heart's not always in the right place, but if it is, there's a certain confidence behind that.
To be fair to Kevin, I think that's been proven with other people on podcasts. I think some good examples are like, people like Joe Rogan. I think with Kanye West on Alex Jones, his heart was on the right place. With no, I'm kidding. That was definitely not on the right place.
That was a wild one, yeah.
That was a wild one. But the point I'm trying to make is you can say it's okay. So the point I'm actually trying to make is look up actually don't look up the interview with Kanye West, Alex Jones. It's not fun.
He had Alex Jones like, huh? What's going on? Someone's wilding out when he's the one who's like, bruh, we gotta calm down.
Would you make Alex Jones look like a reasonable person? That's when you're like,
yeah, exactly.
But the point I was trying to make is your heart can be in the right place, but it's still a matter of communication, right? I think it all just really comes down to communication. Intention and what comes out of your mouth aren't always linked.
Yeah.
You know what's a good example, I think? And I think this ties in. Hear me out. When you're talking, for those of us, when you're talking, women and men communicate very differently, right?
Yeah.
Men are just very like, this is just like, they just say it how it is usually. But women usually communicating what they feel, right? So if you're talking to a female friend or even your partner and you're giving her some feedback, it's a lot different than how you would say give one of your boys feedback.
Yeah.
So if you're
1,000%.
So if you're coming up to me like, Poya, you're always late, be on time, or something like that. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm always late, I'll be on time. If I was your girlfriend, I don't think you'd say it like that. But even though your intention's good,
absolutely.
you would change up the communication.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where I think with cancellation, there are a lot of situations where people's intentions are good, but they're not communicating their intentions because they're not thinking about the audience. They're just thinking about them wanting to say what they want, which then also says the intention isn't always like pure. So what I mean, but
then you got to think like the point of a podcast is to not always have a pure intention. It's just to say what you want to say. So then it comes back to what's the actual intention of the podcast. What do they want to achieve? You know what I mean? Because for example, you look at like the Breakfast Club or something, and they're just saying whatever they want to say, and they're triggered about whatever they want to say, and they're not coming from a place of like, my goal is really just to help the person. That's not everyone's goal.
Their goal's to entertain, so that's how they communicate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlemagne
and being polarizing and being triggering and polarizing, like I hate that they did that. People eat that up. People love that.
There'll always be a faction of people who will love what you're saying, and a faction of people who will hate what you're saying.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to take the risk, I feel like there's always going to be a risk involved. Because we've had a lot of conversations about this off camera, and I think for me, I've come to the conclusion I'm willing to take the risk of being misunderstood and of being like trashed because I said something that people disagree with. I won't be trying to say it just to piss people off. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to be trying to...
You said that brilliantly.
I'm not going to be trying to ruffle feathers for the sake of ruffling feathers because it gets clicks. And I think someone like Tate has been guilty of that.
Yep.
Because it's just for the eyeballs.
Yep.
Like, if I'm saying it, it has to be because I actually believe it and that I feel like it should be heard. And I may get it wrong. Not even may. I will get it wrong sometimes. But I think I'm willing to accept that that's going to happen.
Bro, I respect it so much. Because I remember your thing was kind of like, we've got jobs, so we have to be extra careful or whatever. But I feel like you've shifted into, you know what? If it's authentic, if I believe it, and if I have the right intention, then I can say it.
Plus,
you know what?
I think that's also, and I'll let you go in just a moment, Poya, sorry.
No,
I think that's also like one of the best routes to finding your true audience.
Yes.
Like people who hear what you're saying and truly agree, they will be like, oh, he actually is willing to speak up and say what needs to be said.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep listening to him.
Yeah.
Versus if you always play it safe, then eventually he's gonna fizzle out because it's just like you're not really doing anything different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Half agree.
Yes. Rebuttal us.
Yes. Let's go.
Let's get him.
We gotta think.
Double team him.
I agree with you on principle, but in practicality, right? So Kevin's an entrepreneur. He's his own boss.
Even if he's an entrepreneur, he still has to report to like the public opinion. Like he still can mess up his money.
But most of his clients would already agree with him. He's not. I think to be in self-help, you'd have to be pretty bad to get cancelled. I feel like cancellation is not really a thing in the self-help world because most people who have an interest in self-development don't really like buy into that, right? So I think with that in mind, you and I are both employees, and that's a whole different game. And I personally, I have bills to pay. I got responsibilities. Now, I'm not saying that we don't like say what we want to say, that we don't go there. I'm just saying if I'm going to go there, I want to go there carefully and responsibly. And I don't want to just be like, those Christians who are just like, oh, God will provide. I'm not going to put any money into savings. I could you know what I mean? Like,
just jumping off the cliff without any kind of thought of this is going to have a consequence.
Yeah. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like, oh, I just trust in the Lord's provision. You know that guy who like stands on the top of his roof. There's a flood, and then a helicopter goes past, and they're like, you want help? Nah, fam. God's got me. Boat goes past. Nah, I'm good. God's got me. And then he drowns, dies. He's in heaven. He's like, God, why didn't you save me? He's like, bro, I sent you a helicopter and a boat. What I'm trying to get at is, and it's a bit of a weird one actually, that maybe that doesn't fully apply, but the idea behind that is we got responsibilities and we have to be a little bit pragmatic.
Yeah.
A little bit. I'm not saying that we like go, oh, don't say that.
I agree with you. And I want to hear Kev make an argument for why we should be willing to take the risk when we're employees.
No, you know what? I think it actually comes down to your own personal risk profile.
Oh, I like that term.
It just comes down to how much risk are you actually willing to take, you know?
I don't
Because
think
everyone's priority is kind of different. Your thing, like someone's priority might be, oh, you know, I like my job, I like this, I like the way things are, and I just like to do this a little bit on the side, so I want to keep everything perfect. If that's you, then great. That's what it is, right? But if someone's like, no, you know what, my thing is like I have a mission on this earth, and I have a voice that's super deep, and I need to get this out, no matter what people say. And if that's the level of your mission, then you'll be willing to take risks. So I believe that it just comes down to your risk profile.
You know what, Kevin? If you hire me and you pay me more than I'm getting paid right now, I will do what I will get cancelled for you, bro.
I'll say to you.
I will say the most cancelable things, bro. I will straight up. I'll go a rumble for you, bro. Like I will go there.
You know
fair
what?
enough, but I would say what you said. You know, but okay, fair enough. But I got bills to pay. That's what everyone would say. Yeah. And you know what? It comes down to there's a really great scene in the movie Troy, where there's a little kid. He goes up to Brad Pitt. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
And he goes because he's coming to employ Achilles to go kill this big bad guy, and he goes, the guy that you're about to fight, I wouldn't want to fight him, and he just goes, well, that's why no one will remember your name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And we're not saying that to you, Poya. We are not saying that.
No, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying,
it's a pretty
I'm
intense
just saying,
analogy.
like, yeah, but I mean, like, you can be a homeless person and no one will forget your name, right? But you're still homeless.
But there's
and I know, and I know I'm being very pedantic about this whole, like, I don't want to lose my job. I want to, like, I've got bills to pay. But, like, it is something to consider, man.
Can I ask you a question, Poya?
Yeah, go.
Because I honestly think me and Kev agree with you as far as, like, don't just be an asshole. And we also understand the idea of not getting fired. So here's my question. Would you even speak what you believe to be truth if there's a risk of you getting fired? Like, what if you feel like God puts you in that moment to say something that's going to impact someone?
I'd say it.
You're probably going to have moments like that throughout the life of this podcast.
I think the conversation we had about white people was one of those moments, so I'm prepared.
Where you're meant to... Are you joking?
Half joking. But I mean, even that is like spicy in itself, right? Like I don't think it will, but I'm just saying...
Poya, he's getting cancelled.
I guess, okay.
We should put a disclaimer saying Kev's opinions do not reflect me and Poya's.
We should put that at the beginning of every episode. No, you know what? Yeah, I would say it. I would. And I think that's the. I don't think I've held back on the podcast. I've just been. Yeah. I think on the podcast, I'm definitely a lot more thoughtful about how I speak. And I think I'm a better communicator on the podcast than I am in real life because I am more thoughtful. So that's maybe something I can take into my personal life. So maybe that just serves me better. Maybe it serves you guys better to be a bit more free-flowing. I don't know.
Well, you know what? It's like, I honestly think that the truth is, it's like everyone's got their risk tolerance, what they're willing to take when it comes to risk. And I feel like it just depends. Some people are just naturally just adventure seekers. They're like they're hungry. They want to pull it. Like, let's see. I'm happy to lose my job. I'm happy to go to a different country without any money. Like some people it's just a different risk profile.
Yeah, I got what you mean.
And in the bigger scheme of things, we're all here because if you really think about it, we're just balancing each other out. You're probably right. We probably do need to take on a little bit what your perspective is. Yeah. You probably need to take on a little bit of our perspective, and that's usually the way it works.
And I feel like I'm gonna be a swing state. Sometimes I'm gonna jump off the cliff with Kev. And sometimes I'm going to be like, yeah, Poya, let's try to make sure we don't get destroyed. tomorrow. So
it's a good mix for sure.
It's a good mix.
Yeah.
Dynamo, strategist, visionary.
let's transition into Kev triggering.
Yeah, what is this all about?
Wait. You agreed to the topic.
But I just was curious because I don't know
Yeah.
what. I don't know.
He trusts me.
I trust Josh. I trust Josh with my life.
Yeah. By the way, I went to his church yesterday. It was lit. Loved the hospitality.
Ah, thanks, man.
I might be easy to please because the moment they brought out food on tray, they brought out snacks on trays, and I was like, oh, they've won me over.
Was it chicken?
It was a gummy worm and some cookies. I was like, yeah, we good.
Some watermelon.
You're actually a crackhead, bro. We're going to fight on the podcast. That's what it's going to turn into, us fighting on the podcast.
Is this what triggers you, the racial jokes, or is that?
No, this is a new element, but this might be... Okay, let's get into it.
Let's get into
So-
it. Let's get into it.
Like,
So
for
excited.
people at home, like, putting together a podcast is not the hardest thing in the world. Like, let's not act like it's, like, freaking,
No.
I don't know, something that's super hard. Drilling in the middle of the
You
ocean.
have
I
to
don't
have
know,
balls,
whatever.
I mean,
Speaking
girls-
on the podcast,
okay.
yeah. But I mean, isn't like the behind the scenes stuff, like getting things organized, yada, yada, yada.
Gotcha.
Logistics.
The logistics, organization, coming to
Replying
an
to
agreement. Like,
messages.
this is kind of like a democratic organization between us three of like
Yeah.
what we decide to do.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
What I'm learning now is like me and Kev, how we view whether it's business, project management, other things is like we're having discussions and there are those moments where he's saying things that is showing me more about myself. And that's why I said, this is the reason why I said you will love this segment, because you haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
Like, not explicitly. Like maybe you may have been wrong here or there, but like
Yeah.
I'm not even paying attention to anything like that.
Yep.
Having conversations with you just really reveals a lot. It just reveals a lot of my own either insecurities or my preferences of communication that might be different from you, and then it would trigger me. So
Right,
for
right,
example,
right.
like one thing I've learned, and this might be the ADHD. I'm not sure if it is. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, he's not diagnosed yet, so.
He's undiagnosed. Please go and I
Yes,
can't wait
yes.
to get the verdict.
Okay.
When we have a conversation, what I realized about myself is when we start a topic, I like to finish it. I need to reach climax of that topic of we've squeezed all the juice, we've ate all the meat from the bone, we found all the gold. Kev, we'll be like a minute, we'll be 30 seconds into a discussion debating like what's the best route to go, and Kev will be like, yeah, whatever, let's move on to something else. And he will make a very good reason for why we should move on. I agree with you. You'll be like, bro, the reason why I will so quickly scrap a topic and go on to the next one is because it may not be worth the mental bandwidth. Like the return on investment is not worth the mental bandwidth that we need to use to keep discussing this. And I'm like, he's right. But
right.
I'm realizing in that moment, I'm like, oh, I'm someone who I have to finish the topic. Like I feel like there's so much that's still within there that we hadn't discussed that I want to pull out.
Wow.
And that's like an
That's
example of the things I'm like working with you. I'm realized, oh, like Kev's triggering me, not intentionally
You're
and
right.
not in a bad way. Like it's just a byproduct of discussion.
Yep.
But it's this, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
am I triggering you? That's what I want to know. Am I doing
sure.
things that's like, bro, this Josh guy, I'm done
Well,
with him.
no, first of all, no, because I think the way that me and you work, Josh, is our dynamic is kind of like we have natural ways of doing things that naturally crash, but
Yeah.
we have a part of ourselves that is agreeable.
Ah, that's true.
And that's why it works.
Yeah, that's so
because
true,
we,
yeah.
we really care and we want to make sure the other person is happy. We want to make sure that... So part of us is like, I'm strong on this, I believe in this, but part of them is like, but I really value peace and I really want him to be happy. So it's like, I find us, we clash on one element and then we also just be like, no, but you know what, Josh? No, that's cool. Like, you can take this one. Let's do this. And then you'll be like, no, Kev, you go. No, you tell me what you want to say. And then we kind of like go back and forth. So I feel like it works well that way.
It works well. Look, I have a lot of confidence that we're going to like completely crush it and make it work.
Yeah.
But it's in those early days where like, what's that saying? Like growing pains?
Yep.
You know, like there's that saying, styles makes for fights in boxing.
Yep.
And I'm realizing like there are a lot of habits and traits of my friends, my roommate. I won't say his name until he gives me permission to say his name on the pod, but my roommate and stuff, like I know what about him may trigger me
Right.
to the point where I've adapted to it. I'm used to it.
Right.
So I'm kind of over it now. I've like overcome that battle.
Yep.
But Kev's like a new personality. He has new styles of how he might get under my skin that I haven't been exposed to yet. It's like different pathogens that I haven't been exposed to yet. I don't have any antibodies to fight it. So I'm still learning how to like work, communicate, all that kind of stuff with you.
Yeah. Well, dude, I have to genuinely say this. It's actually been, I don't know whether you'd agree, like you'd believe this or not, but it's actually so fun to work with you.
I love it.
It's actually very fun. Like the clashes are very, very fun because I'm sitting here going, and then what will happen is we'll kind of clash, and then I'll ring up Poya and I'll be like, yo, what do you think about this? And then Poya surprisingly just like, yeah, boom, yeah, boom, yeah, boom, yeah, this is right, yeah, boom. He's usually just like a little bit of like a matrix, you know what I mean? He just knows, which is, it's not his usual style of doing things, but me and you, I find that when we clash, it's a very fun clash because it's like, we know that we have the best interests. There's no ego. There's just different personalities. You know what I mean? The only thing that I would say that triggers me about you is sometimes I find that you're a little bit too much like a strategist where certain things you'll be like, no, we should have done this way, or you really deeply think into it. It's almost like you're very good at identifying all the holes in a plan and then going, because of all these holes, we got to come up with a contingency plan. Whereas I'm kind of like, well, the way that people move is they just roll with it, and then when the hole happens, then they come up with it then. And that's usually where we clash, is what I find.
Yeah. I completely get you. Poya, you've dealt with Kev a lot longer than I have. Teach me. Who is he, bro? Tell me about this guy.
Who is he? Oh,
Who is Kevin?
And like, what about him triggers you? And it doesn't even need to be trigger. Like, that's like kind of a hook word I'm using, but like.
No, a lot about Kevin triggers me, to be honest.
Not a lot?
No, a lot.
Yes.
But I love it. And this is actually, and I guess this is an interesting perspective. It's kind of, is it a bit arrogant to say your perspective is interesting? I don't know. That felt very like authentic to say, so I'm comfortable saying that. When I think with certain people, you just love them. There's certain people you just love so much that you're like, I actually would. You know what? This is how I describe pet peeves. I have pet peeve. I haven't found mine with you yet. I will, because we're getting closer. But I love you, bro.
I really appreciate that, and I hope that when you do find the thing about me you don't like, that one, we can have that open discussion, and two, that like that's all right. Our friendship's bigger than what we're gonna annoy each other with. Let
me. You won't know what your pet. All right, let me explain my thing on pet peeves, because this may surprise you. I have pet peeves with most people, or I either have pet peeves or I haven't identified them yet. But I will never tell my friends. I will never tell you guys specifically what my pet peeves with you guys are, because it's part of who you are.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like, it's a pet peeve for a reason. It's not legitimate. It's a hardness, as to use your, I love it when you use this term, but the hardness of my own heart that I just get triggered by certain things that are just neutral. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just who you are. And because I love you, I don't want you to change that. Unless it's something bad and toxic, sure. But it's a pet peeve. It's neutral. So I don't want you to change it, because then you're not you. And then it's like, it's not the person that it's like a different person. Maybe I love that person too, but it's not you. And it's like, yeah. And so I'm big on not telling people what my pet peeves are with them, because I don't want them to change that, because I also like that I get annoyed, because it's part of the relationship. It's part of the dynamic. I love that there are times where Kevin really gets under my skin. Like, it's actually part of the fun of the friendship.
But here's the thing, Poya.
Yeah.
This is where,
that, by the way.
like, first of all, I love what you said. And I remember you've said this a long time ago. And I really respected that you say that, because I really love the fact that it kind of holds people with value. And it's just like, I don't want to change them. I love them. And that's the way that life should be. And I feel like that's ideal, it really is. In another way of looking at it, there's many things that you picked on from me and been like, hey, you got to change this, you got to change this, you got to change this. And they're things I needed to change.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of things that you picked at and gone, you got to change this, 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 and this, we've worked on, and I've changed a lot of it. And there's some that I'm still changing.
Yeah.
Right? So the question for you, and Josh, you can join in this one as well. It's like, how do you know when it's a pet peeve where it's just like, okay, well, that's them? How do you know that's a pet peeve that they may need to actually improve on, because you want to help them become a better person and you want them to improve in that area?
All right. Yeah. That's a great question. So when I've told you, when I've, I guess, rebuked you for things, and lovingly, not like, hey, don't do that. Like, bro, like this hurts, man. This hurts my feelings. But it's because there is a negative impact and it's a generally negative behavior. So, okay, I'll use myself as an example, right? When you and Sean were telling me off for being late, that's not a pet peeve. That's actually a negative behavior because I'm not respecting your time. I'm not respecting other people's times. It negatively impacts everyone, right? I can make any excuse I want. I've got ADHD, I've got that, which I do, but I still have a responsibility to respect your time, and I deserve to have my time respected. So that's a situation where that's not a pet peeve. Pet peeves are more like, none of you guys, but some people talk a certain way that just irks me. But it's nothing bad. It's just how they talk. And it's just, again, it's a hardness of my own heart that I get annoyed by that. I have one friend who's very switched on, very intellectual. I disagree with them on a lot of perspectives, but they're very smart, but they talk in a very non-intelligent way. Like, they kind of sound like they're not smart. I don't want to... They sound like a bimbo. No. All right? I'm just going to say, she sounds like a bimbo, but she's genuinely one of the most intelligent people I know. She's an absolute beast, super successful. I respect her so much. But just and she even says, oh, people think I'm dumb because of my voice. And I've said, and I said, yeah, you do say, but you're smart. And who cares what people say? I don't want her to change her voice. I love her voice. I love that I get triggered by it because it also highlights something in me that I need to change.
Yep.
It's all about me. It's about me. And it's like what you're saying about Kevin. It's like, it's a you problem. It's not a him problem.
Yeah, it reveals my own... Exactly. That's what I love about it. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. It was revealing in me. I'm like, why do I feel like I need to reach the end of a topic? Why can't I just be willing to say, hey, 2 minutes in, we kind of already got what we need out of it. We don't need to explore every avenue. We don't need every contingency, like you said. Let's just B-roll out and go to the next one.
I also want to say to that point, Josh, that we're both extreme on either end of that. Because if you're the one that goes, I need to finish the topic, I'm the one that just goes boom, 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 boom. I'm very just quick jumping topics. So I feel like maybe in some of the circumstances and the examples that you're giving, I think I know what you're referring to, some of the arguments that we went through. It's like, maybe in those cases, okay, fine, we could have just jumped ship and went to the other one. But I'm sure there's some cases where I do it a little bit too much as well. I'm sure Poya's been privy to that.
Look, I think you guys and anyone who's listening to this podcast will learn my ideology when it comes to conflict management and like decision making, which is I'm all about timing. I always believe, similar to like the Ecclesiastes verse, like there's a time for everything. There's a time to get all the meat off the bone, and there's a time to just say, all right, let's move on. You know, so I'm more trying to find out like when is the right. I want to have the wisdom to know when's the right time to go down your route and when's the right time to stand my ground and say, hey, let's actually explore this fully.
Right.
If a situation has grave consequences, big impact, I'm more likely to stand my ground because I'm like, this is too big of a deal for us to just do it willy-nilly.
Yep.
But,
agreed.
you know, there's plenty of times where like, I'm kind of looking at it like sport. Like, the reward isn't that great.
Yeah.
But I'm just like really making us stay on the phone for extra 15 minutes to like discuss the extra 5 points of a topic. It's like, it's just, we're just wasting time now.
Right.
So your thinking challenges me to say, okay, am I being a good steward with my time when it comes down to it, you know?
That was a bar. Maybe a good steward of my time.
That's really good.
Kind of quick.
Really I need Poya in my life. Bro, can I wake up and just you're there like, Josh, bro?
Bro, just call me. I'll call you, bro. I'll be your alarm clock. I'll be like, my man, you got it today, bro.
You would have a good alarm clock,
Shahi.
Are you in love with me now, Kevin? Does at least
I'm going to pounce on you if you say it like that again.
Hey, Daddy, sure.
It's like pounce again.
To all the Christian women who are listening. I'm not going to say it.
Okay,
no, you can't do that to them.
Another
They're waiting.
All right. Oh, yeah,
There's another angle that we've got to touch on when it comes to the pet peeves, right? You've talked about, okay, pet peeves. Okay, there's the idea that, you know, this is just their trait. This is just their own little quirk in the way that they do things. I shouldn't judge. That's a me thing. That's not a them thing. However, the other side is, to give you an example, there's been things where, even in our friendship, there's been things where I've noticed that there's certain times where there was period, and we've talked about this before, where you were making certain jokes, and I was like, oh, that it just doesn't click with me, doesn't jive with me. That's not my humor. I don't like it, or whatever it is. I don't know what it was, right? But it was something that you used to say or something you used to do, and I was like, yeah, I don't like it. But then when I reflected, I was like, but that's actually not Poya being authentic. That's Poya not being himself in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I also feel like, Josh, and tell me if this is the case, with all of us, with all friends, sometimes as friends, we have this inner bullshit meter that picks up their inauthenticity, and it comes out, the way that we pick it up is through being triggered about them.
Question then.
Yeah.
The watermelon joke, was that authentic, Kev, or were you just trying to ruffle?
I was mucking around. Yeah. But I like to dance on the line because I know that those are jokes where it's kind of like, specifically picked that joke because it's a joke where I know like an insecure black male will be like, oh yeah, like, and just lose it for that. But it's one of those things where, no, I know I didn't do something wrong there. I know there's a level where, okay, fine, I did something wrong. And it's like sometimes I know that people just, they're ready to just pounce on something just because they like to be triggered. And I know in that moment, for that level, you could keep going because it gets further and further, right? We can go into like really dark humor around that stuff, but I don't go that far with it, right?
Okay.
I'm just like, okay, watermelon, okay, chicken, okay, maybe grape drink, not grapefruit, grape drink.
He's slowly, he wants to go down the line so badly.
I'm not gonna go further than that, right? Because I know at that stage, I didn't do anything wrong. So, so that's why, I do that in a way to test as well. Just to dance along the line, to be like, I know that's the line. I'm not going to go past that line. But I'll dance on the line.
I think that's why you get away with it because that's who you are. And inauthenticity looks different for all of us. So for you, inauthenticity, I don't know would you be comfortable with me saying on the camera?
Yes, go for it.
I think it's when you don't fully allow yourself to feel what you feel. And when you go into problem solver mode.
Say more.
Like, and you don't do this as much. You've gone a lot better, but there's been so many... Again, I've said this on the pod when I was going through some stuff and you were like, read the bloody book by Nicola, the holistic psychologist. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that. You're like, just read a book. I'm like, I need a vent. Oh, no, dude, just trust me, buy a book, read it. Book didn't do anything, bro. Damn, but that's all right. You've repented. I don't hold... I
repented.
You've repented. You've said sorry. You've changed. So I'm like, I don't really hold it against you. I'm just saying that's an example. Yep. And that's where your inauthenticity comes out. It's you shut off.
Yeah.
You immediately go into like, I'm going to solve this problem because I don't feel comfortable with what it's bringing up in me. I don't know what it is for you yet, but for myself, it's the jokes because I feel vulnerable and I feel scared that I'm not comfortable. It's all, I guess maybe there's a theme of discomfort with our own feelings, but I'll make jokes. And I did this on the previous episode because I wanted to feel included. If you re-listen, there's a few jokes I made to join in on the banter because I wanted to feel like part of it when really I didn't need to. I could have just enjoyed it. And so,
wow,
it's like I do it because there's a negative feeling I have that I don't want to confront. And I think part of my own journey has been learning to be vulnerable and to confront those feelings and to just feel them. And I think maybe that's where a lot of our inauthenticity comes from.
Yep.
What are you guys' thoughts?
First of all, that was fire, but I'm going to let you start.
No, go ahead.
No,
I don't really have much to say, to be honest.
No, go for it. I'm processing that.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. I have nothing to say. Like, he hit the nail on the head. I'm kind of ready to transition, to be honest.
I'll just say on the topic, that's absolutely brilliant. I think at the end of the day, that's what it means when people say, just be yourself. Like, I remember when, how do I get girls? Just be yourself. Like, what's my purpose? Just find yourself. Just follow your, like, you used to hear these things and, like, you're going on stage, you don't know what to say. Just be yourself. But, like, if you really think about it, it's actually a very powerful piece of advice, but people never know how to be yourself. But I think if you bring in examples like what you're talking about, that's exactly what it is. You can actually know what is not yourself. So if you can know what is not yourself, then you know what is yourself. Does that make sense?
And I want to add on to that because I think that I want to flesh this out a bit.
Yes, please, because I think it's a good topic.
I think when we hear yourself, we have so many different ideas. Some people can be like, well, what if you're a serial killer who likes murdering people? Should you be yourself? And I don't think it's not that. It's really, I want to take it to another level.
Yeah.
It's thinking, how am I, it's self-forgetfulness. It's thinking, how can I serve the people around me? Not myself. How can I love the other people around me? And that's what Jesus does. That's what that is to be Christ-like. To be Christ-like is to love your neighbor as yourself, to bless those who persecute you, right? So when I was in that previous episode, when you guys were full bantering and all, I can't even remember what you guys were talking about. You're talking about the ADHD and how Kev needs to get a second opinion. I remember it vividly because I cringed when I listened to myself on it, and I tried to jump in with an awkward joke. It's like I was thinking of how I looked on camera. I was thinking of how can I include myself. I wasn't thinking of like, hey, my friends are having an awesome time. We're doing this. It's cool. This is a good conversation. I was thinking, how do I insert myself in this? It was all about me. And I think when we're inauthentic, it's not just that we don't confront our own negative feelings. It's also that we think about ourselves over other people. Because we're so uncomfortable with how we feel. So we're thinking, okay, I don't like these negative emotions I have. How do I avoid them? But we're not thinking about the consequences of the actions that we take to avoid those emotions. So when I make like an awkward joke, which I've struggled with my whole life, those jokes, I don't think, can that offend someone else? Can that make someone else uncomfortable? Can that trigger someone? I'm just thinking, how do I like deflect from these intense these feelings that I have? Because I don't want to feel them.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of my own needs, not other people's, and I feel like for both of us, and I feel for you as well, for all of us, when we're actually authentic, it's when we're actually thinking about others, because we're in flow, because we're not even thinking, we're moving, and when you move with love, that's when you're thinking the least about yourself, and you're just moving, you're in flow state essentially.
Yeah, that's what he's in right now, by the way.
I was about to say. Yeah, because
you can tell, but
cooking
that's the
right
thing.
now.
You can tell. Other people can tell. There's an energy to it.
Yeah.
And I can tell that was that energy.
And now you got me thinking, imagine like our podcast always being like all of us being in flow state like most of the time. Imagine how lit it will be. It will just be like, because you're not in your own head. You're not super obsessed or conscious of the camera. You're just potting, And even hearing you speak and go through that, explaining what the situation was, I'm like, yeah, I've been in that multiple times. Whether it's on a podcast or off a podcast, where like you feel like the third wheel of the conversation. You're like, man, like I feel lesser than. How can I get up? And then that's when you start making those silly mistakes and saying things that make no sense. So that's challenging me a lot right now to be like, hey, it's okay. The world doesn't revolve around you. It's all right for you just to sit back and watch two people enjoy themselves and go hard. Like,
Yeah, and you know what the irony is? The less that you try to do that, the more that you kind of become that. So the less that you're trying to be the center of attention, the more that you actually will become, almost. It's kind of like in dating or even sales. The less that you need the sale and you're just kind of happy whatever happens, you're just present in the conversation in the moment, the more likely you are to get the sale.
Yes.
Yep. And and it's almost like we get in our own way.
The way I'm processing what you're saying and why I believe that is because like the same insecurity that will make you butt in when you shouldn't butt in is the same insecurity that will make you not say something when you should say something. You know what I mean? Yep. So if you're confident in yourself, if you know that, you're fine, everything's going to be okay, yada, 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 you'll be willing to say your truth. You'll be willing to be authentic. You'll be willing to say things that are sincere. And that's what's going to come off most effective as well, but just being willing to go with it, be in that flow state, be willing to not be too self-conscious. Easier said than done, but
Yeah, I also want to. I think you said something interesting where it's like, imagine if this was this whole thing was flow. This how amazing this podcast would be.
If we're always all in like flow state or predominant amount of the time.
But I'm thinking, I think it would still be pretty rad if it wasn't. I think maybe at least one of us has to be, but I think it also creates opportunity for breakthrough and for, I don't know, like the word that comes to mind is more deeper expressions of love when there isn't.
Elaborate.
Yeah, okay. So let's say this is the scenario I'm imagining. Let's say I'm feeling very shy on the podcast and I'm trying to like express myself, and then one of you picks up on it and you're like, hey, what's up? What are you actually feeling? And that creates like these really real moments of vulnerability. That's just the first example popped in my head. But even say if I'm making certain jokes and you challenge me on that, I'm just saying for my expression of inauthenticity, that also creates something interesting. That creates an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Here's what's funny about that. It's funny how now Kev's kind of gone quiet and letting me and Poya just go at it for a bit. I think he's trying to really practice what we're preaching. how it plays out, it can play out in so many different ways where like, yeah, you're right. Us not being in flow state and just all being self-conscious 24/7 could also make it kind of an interesting podcast. Like what's going on with these goofballs. But so I do agree with you, but say you were always in flow state or you were in that state a lot. If you were upset and someone was to come to you and be like, hey, what's wrong? You being authentic, you being sincere, you'll probably actually open up and say what's actually on your mind. Versus if you were in your own head and self-conscious, you'd be like, I can't say this in front of the whole world right now. How can they all know my flaws? Yeah. You know, so it can always it always has like a, I guess, now my mind's blanking, but like it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
No matter what's happening. I don't know if I've given any kind of like comfort or conclusion, but it's kind of like no matter which way we go, you're gonna have your pros and your cons.
Well, this is the thing. I think it's the whole thing, but God will use it for His glory, right? It's like we could all be inauthentic right now and be trying to like be the center of attention and hog the mics, the limelight, whatever. But God can use that, and that's really what matters in the end. That's why we do this podcast. That's what we prayed for at the beginning. We're like, God, use this for your glory, not for us. This isn't about us trying to look cool. I mean, yeah, it'll be cool if we can build like a following off of this. But the reason we do it is because we want to give all glory to God and we want to point people to Him. But yeah, I think that's really what matters is whether God's using it or not. So we can all be terrible. We can be tired. We can be, like grumpy at each other. We can be throwing water bottles at each other. But if God can use that, I feel like that's really what matters in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being in that state of surrender. Kev, you've been processing taking this all in, man.
Honestly, I don't have much to say. It's like I listened to you for a bit and I was just like, yeah, I really resonate with that. That would be really cool when we were all in flow state, and then I listened to you and I was just like, yeah, but that also has benefits as well. And then I'll listen to both of your perspectives and I was like, it's all true.
Remember the conversation we had last week about like freedom in God and like the idea of like, we're always trying to look for like the perfect route. We're trying to look for like I'm trying to think of like what we're talking about specifically because maybe we'll re-jog your memory. You had the issue with the coaching clients and saying, hey, which methodology do I want to use?
Yes, okay.
I had the issue with
finding the best method to get somewhere or to achieve something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you came up with like a quick formula. You were like, if it's done in love, if it doesn't go against God's word, then and you're doing it out of the your own heart, then who cares whether you go left or right? Both directions are allowed.
Yeah.
Do you remember what I'm saying? Or
I remember the framework. The framework was, so a few of my clients were just thinking, like one of my clients it was a situation where he was like, hey, do I want to do this or do I want to do this? And he was at this crossroad. He was getting emotionally overwhelmed. And I came up with this framework and it was very simple. It was just, number one, is it something that you actually want to do? In other words, if I took away the other option, would you be relieved that this is the only option left? And it was like, yeah, I would be. So the first clue is, do you actually want that? What do you want? And the second clue after what do you want is it rooted in logic? Is it rooted in some basic facts of, yep, this is going to work based on, the results before, based on what people say, based on the statistics, this looks like it's going to work. And the last one is, do you have good intentions? And if you have good intentions, you want this path and it's rooted in logic, it's always the right decision. And even if it's not, it can never really be a wrong decision. Because, like I remember TD Jakes says, he goes, his cousin one day asked him, what if I do the wrong thing? And he goes, if you do the wrong thing, it'll be the thing that leads to the thing. And that's always the case. If you keep going and if you just keep going to the next thing, you're never going to make a wrong decision.
I feel you. Sathi, how much time do you have left, by the way? 10 more minutes. There was something I wanted to add on about that, but my mind's gone blank. So I can't really say much about it.
Yeah.
If you guys want to, I'm curious about maybe trying to get one more mini topic in.
Yeah.
Or do you want to stick on where we're at?
No, let's do
I feel like, do we have time for a mini topic?
Probably not, but
we could
give it a
touch
go.
on it. Maybe we can
touch
pick it up
on it
next
and then
week.
like cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. What mini topic did you want to?
You want to do hot and holy?
Let's do hot and holy, baby.
All right.
Hot and holy.
Hot and
Wait,
mate.
so I'm gonna read out because this was your idea, right, Poya?
This was my
So
idea.
you got to present it. Can I read out what the sentence was that you presented first?
Put out the sentence, baby. Let's do it.
So, hot and holy. Oh man, I want to be a broadcaster so badly. Hot and holy. Is it wrong for Christians to want to improve their looks? Question mark.
Ooh.
Poya, what sparked that?
I think I know what sparked that, but
What really sparked that?
No, I was having a conversation with a mate yesterday about like what's a healthy way to. I just want to be clear. I'm like actually kind of over talking about dating, but it's relevant, so I want to bring it up. But we're talking about. But first, I'm just like, man, I just had to get that out there. Yeah. So I was talking with my friend, and we're talking about what is a healthy way to date, and like, you know, as Christians, you know, where's the line in terms of where because men, we're more physically drawn, right? So looks are very important. And as Jess said on the episode we did with her, you know, looks for women should be the least interesting thing about you, but it is the hook that pulls the guy in, right?
Yeah.
So we're chatting, and we're like, we'll chat about like how much do we value physical attractiveness, and is it vain for us to want to look good? Like, is it vain for a Christian to want to, like, is that vanity to want to go to the gym and get, you know, muscles and get in a shape and get toned and to, you know, dress well and things like that? That's kind of what triggered it. I think it's a very good thing to want to improve your looks, and I actually think it's a very loving thing to the people around you. I'm going to be... This is where I get cancelled. I get frustrated when and it's usually guys that do this, where I don't know if have you met those guys where they've got like their beards unkempt, they've got like all these like crusty pimples all over their face they haven't like cleaned up, their BO's off, they're wearing these gross like t-shirts that like, I don't know, pop culture that haven't been washed in a while, and there's just no effort. And
It's
it's
a pet peeve.
I don't think it's a pet peeve. That's fair. That's fair. But see, this is why I don't think that's a pet peeve, because I'm like, I'm not saying you have to dress super nice. I'm just saying I don't want to be.
Look after yourself.
I don't want to look at your crusty pus on your face. Okay.
I agree with that.
Like, I don't want to
agree
see
with
that. And I'm not saying if you have acne, like, you know, I get that. I'm not saying that. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is like, it's very. What I'm saying is people just put nothing. They don't even clean their face. Like,
Because
so I'm
you know
not.
what,
I want to
Poya?
make it. Yeah.
What you're saying is good, because sometimes it's actually selfish to not look after yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for me, I put effort in. I'm not trying to. Yeah, there's a benefit to me, but I am thinking, and also conversely, I'm also careful. Maybe I look too good. I remember I was gonna go to one thing, and I was like gonna
Where
wear.
it's like, damn, I can't wear this shirt, man.
It was
Like,
dripping.
Yeah, bro.
Oh my god.
man.
No.
Do this to the girls. Can't put this thirst trap on.
You know what's
bro.
funny? That's actually what I was thinking. I had this singlet, and my guns were popping, and I'm like, should not be wearing this to church.
They're not ready for this.
It was like 10 years ago as well. It was when I was in uni. It was like some mission thing I was doing, and I'm like, I feel like my heart in wearing this is more not to just look good, but to like actually elicit lustful thoughts.
Okay, I get you.
And I was like, you know what? I think I'll just stick with a t-shirt. And I think that's the line. Even like on Saturday night, I was going to a party, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll wear a button-up shirt, you know, and get the sleeves rolled up, because, you know, girls like that. Like, legit, that's what I was thinking. And then I thought to myself, like, you just want to look good because you want to impress people. You want to impress women. You don't want to look good because you want to look presentable. And so then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wear like t-shirt, jeans, cool jacket. Still looks good, but I'm not wearing it to like impress others. I'm wearing it because I feel comfortable in it. I look good. Like, I look presentable. And that's it. So it's a fine line between, I feel like some Christians intentionally try to look unattractive because they're like, that's vanity to like put effort in. But then you get others who go too far the other way, where it's like, I want the attention. I want the validation. Yeah. What are your guys' thoughts?
Kev, you go first, bro.
Honestly, like, the more that we just talk about every single topic, I'm starting to understand that there is a underlying topic to every single thing that we talk about, and that is the middle way. There's always a middle way. And society and the internet, they love to get polarized, because the more emotional you are, the more polarized you get in saying that this is wrong and that is right. But there's always a middle ground. Like you said, you don't want to absolutely not take care of yourself, at all, because that's actually selfish in a way, because if you're sitting next to someone in church and you stink, you've got pimples, you're probably making them uncomfortable, and that's what I mean. It's kind of a selfish thing. So but then the other way, it's like you put too much effort into it, and then you kind of like vain as well. Like I've told you, Poya, like if I dress up, I look pretty good, and I'm very confident in that, but I don't feel like I put too much effort into thinking, oh man, I need to impress this person and that person. So I think it's okay, as long as, this is my personal opinion, as long as you don't put too much effort into doing it for other people. I feel like there's a level. I feel like it's okay to kind of be like, I'm going to dress good. And I feel like if, those people who go, oh, those girls, I'm just going to dress good and it's just to feel good. No, I think there's a little bit of an agenda to impress people, and that's okay. But I feel like if the agenda is too far and it starts really like getting in the control of your decisions and taking your time and like making you do things very differently to what you normally would have done, then it's a problem.
Yeah, sorry, do you have a thought, Josh?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the example popped in my head. Let's say, because Josh and I are single, let's say where we go to a Christian singles event, right? And because we're looking to find a wife. Context is important.
Yes.
In that situation, it's appropriate to like maybe put a bit more. But even then, we got to think, I don't think either of us would genuinely want to cause super lustful thoughts in the women there. It's like we want to look good enough that you're like, oh, who's that? Who's that beautiful, tall,
just like Judy's
handsome man? Okay. Hey, he was just trying to hide quietly there.
Did you not see him the whole time?
No, I saw him, but like you also said, I don't want to share his name and all this and that.
Oh,
like,
true.
Kevin, like,
now we can bleep it if we want to.
We can bleep it. We'll
By the
bleep
way,
it.
shout out to Judah Drums.
Now we can bleep it.
Yeah, shout out to Judah Drums.
Judah Drums. Maddest DJ ever.
Maybe you can make our intro song.
True.
We'll put your link down.
We gotta. Sorry, you go, Josh.
I was gonna say, this is a side note.
I want to give the people some juice, like really squeeze the.
Really squeeze
like
it. We'll get to it because you're in the middle of a thought.
Yeah. So we go to the singles event, right? There, it's appropriate contextually to like dress up nice, but we don't. It's like the line is. It's like I want to pull someone. It's like I want someone to look at me and be like, oh, who's that handsome guy? I don't want someone to look at me and be like, I want to pounce him. Not like I don't want him to be like Kevin earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
Because that is like that's unhelpful. That's not helpful for the walk. The sinful part of me wants that. Absolutely, I'm not going to deny that. But if I want to be like Christ,
that's actually really spot on. What he just said.
Yeah, if I want to be like Christ, it's like I want there to be a line. I want it to be just enough where it's appropriate, but not too much where it's like, oh, I'm actually like putting like sin. I'm actually like dragging into sin. Which sounds weird. It does sound weird. Like if you're not a Christian, your listeners, that does sound weird. I acknowledge that, but that's
look, we're Christians. We're gonna sound weird, but what I liked about what you said is what your method was surgical. Like you're not just like
good word.
Swinging wildly. You're saying, okay, here's my objective. I'm gonna accomplish this while extracting out that extra fat. That's like you're surgical with it, and that's what I think is effective about it. Like I really like that.
Boy, you know what I wonder? I wonder if. Because the reality is some people, like what you say, they naturally don't think like that. They naturally just go, oh, I'm going to put on the clothes and I'm going to impress someone and hopefully I find a partner. People naturally think like that. And then and then there's someone like you and me maybe where we have to, and I wouldn't even say me, but maybe you have to consciously make that decision. And I wonder... Is that just some people always have to consciously make those decisions? Or is there a point we get to where it's just natural? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we got to wrap up in a minute, but I will end with this.
Yeah.
If you guys are happy for me to sign off.
Yes, please.
We can maybe chat about this more next episode, but for me, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, thinking about how other people might feel and empathy is just something that comes very naturally to me. That's just my natural state. And that has its pros and cons.
Good.
Like, it's not... It sounds... it's like, oh, I'm just so naturally... But it's not always the best thing. And it's like... That comes naturally to me. But, like, organization... that doesn't come naturally to me, for example, right? So I'm not trying to say that from, like, I'm better than anyone. I'm not. It's just that's probably one of my spiritual gifts. Right, so for me, everything I do, I'm constantly thinking... Even when I'm talking about the pimples, I want to acknowledge people have acne... where it's really hard. I don't want them to feel self-conscious. So I wanted to make that clear distinction.
On making sure that,
because I can just be like, well, how'd that person feel? And because I want to love people as I love myself.
Yeah.
That empathy makes just forces me to think about where do I take it.
Yeah.
And for some people that's okay. That doesn't come naturally. That's okay. It's something you can work at. Just like organization is something I can work at.
Yeah.
But that's my answer to that. But
brilliant.
we got to wrap this up. I just want to do a shout out to, thanks, Ray. Shout out to Bella Vista Hotel for letting us use their studio. It's a fantastic studio. This is the BOB podcast signing out. We got
Kevin Paulraj,
Joshua Badu.
M Sathi Creations. And last but most certainly not least, Poya, Heidari, Shahi.
Oh,
We'll catch you next time.
Bro. This guy's about to become a